Now, this is how you can summarize the nervous system, the general arrangement of the nervous system. Uh, okay. Now you have the sensory organs on one side, sensory organs and receptors on one side. So when you say sensory organs, eye, ear, the nasal mucosa, the olfactory mucosa, the taste buds of the tongue and all that. So you have either sensory organs, or if they are not at the level of organs, you can just have sensory receptors, like receptors for touch, pressure in your skin, especially in the fingers. Then you have free nerve endings sometimes as receptors for pain. So you get either organs, sensory organs, or sensory receptors. Then their function is, now the sensory organs also, inside them actually there are sensory receptors. So the receptors will actually generate nerve impulses, and the nerve impulses are taken through the sensory nerves to the brain and the spinal cord. Now, there are separate nerves that take these sensory inputs to the brain, which are called cranial nerves, and there are separate nerves that take these impulses to the spinal cord, which are called spinal nerves. So, you have cranial nerves taking impulses to the brain, and there are spinal nerves taking impulses, sensory impulses, sensory inputs to the spinal cord. So, that's the basic thing. So, this is the input. This is the input that you get to the brain. This is the input you get to the brain, and these sensory ones, since they go towards the inner aspect, the inner inside of the body, you call them afferent, going in, afferent nerves, sensory nerves, so afferent nerves. Then there's a lot of processing going on in the brain and the spinal cord, especially in the brain. Spinal cord also, to some extent, there's processing. And after this processing, motor outputs or the motor impulses are taken out through motor nerves, or you call them efferent nerves, coming in the opposite direction, going outwards. So motor nerves and efferent nerves will take nerve impulses to the effector organs, to the effector organ. Now the effector organs are muscles and glands. So all the things that you do voluntarily or involuntarily uh, is done through either contraction of a muscle, voluntary or involuntary muscle, or secretion of a gland, which is involuntary anyway. So you can't voluntarily secrete from glands, you know that. Okay. So then whatever you do, it's just contraction of muscles or secretion from glands, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. So this is the general arrangement of the central nervous system. We will go into little bit of details of it. I think this is disturbing, no? Shall I stop the video so that you will see? So general functions of the nervous system. General functions of the nervous system. Now, contraction of muscles, when it comes to contract, because I said it's either contraction of muscles or secretion from glands. Now, it can be skeletal muscles. It can be skeletal muscles, which is voluntary, and it actually moves joints, skeletal muscles. So they are attached to bones and they move joints. So the other type of muscle is the smooth muscles. It is involuntary, so it is supplied by either sympathetic or parasympathetic parts of the nervous system. Involuntary part of the nervous system we'll get back to in a short while. And these smooth muscles, which are involuntarily controlled, are found in the gut, blood vessels, and all other internal organs like your respiratory tract, urinary tract. All these tracts will have smooth muscles controlled involuntarily. And even in the skin, you have some smooth muscles. Then you get the cardiac muscles, which is also involuntary and involuntary control by the autonomic nervous system of the body. Then the secretion by glands, anyway, it's involuntary, as I said before. So you get salivary glands and glands related to the digestive tract. All these things will secrete. Then, other than these sensory inputs and motor outputs, whether there are motor outputs or not, there is a lot of integration taking place inside the brain. So this integration, once it gets inputs through different organs, either through the eyes or some sound heard, you get through the ear, or you get some smell. Same things you can smell them through the nose, or you get them through touch. Here you touch these things, whether it's soft or hard. All these inputs will give you information, and the brain will process them, integrate them, and the output would be to decide first which one to be eaten, this or this. Then you actually eat it. So you contract all your muscles around, you take it in. Then muscle contraction could be voluntary. Then you get your secretion of saliva for the process, which is involuntary through glands, and you swallow. Initially it's voluntary, all the muscles here will contract, and then after the pharynx it becomes involuntary, so it's peristaltic movements of the gut. So all this that's how we will live our life. Okay. Then the brain has the capacity to coordinate activities. So if you just contract muscles and try to move joints, it will not happen properly unless you coordinate. If I ask you to, say, let me see, if I ask you to touch the nose, if I ask you to take the hand from a distant place and touch your nose, you can't do that unless there is good coordination between all the muscles, your biceps, triceps, and all the muscles of the intrinsic muscles of the hand, because you will not stop there. You will go beyond the nose, or you will go to a side. So this coordination is so important to touch the tip of the nose, or any other place for that matter. So a lot of coordination is necessary. Actually, in patients, you can see these problems with coordination, especially when there are issues with the parts of the brain. You see these issues with the coordination. Then the memory. So humans, even the animals, they have memory. So this memory is important for the functioning of the actual functioning of the brain. Then reflexes. Now sudden action without thinking as an immediate reaction to a situation is called reflexes. Okay. Now the reflexes are sudden action without thinking as an immediate reaction to situation. Now in this example, this person accidentally burns the finger, and then immediately the reflex contraction of biceps or triceps, based on where it burns, the hand is taken out. There is a reflex, so which need not go into the brain. You have brain reflexes at that level. Sometimes you have spinal cord level reflexes. So the brain reflexes will connect up the cranial nerves. Spinal cord reflexes will connect up with the spinal nerve. Then this is how you divide the nervous system into parts. You can have two types of divisions. You can have a functional division, you can have a structural division. Now in all textbooks, you use both from time to time. You go for functional, you go for structural divisions. As long as you know what it really means, then there is no problem. Otherwise, you will get confused. Now, functionally, you can divide the nervous system into a sensory half and a motor half. Now, when you divide it like that, whether it's the brain or the spinal cord or the peripheral nervous system, you get this division. You have a sensory side and a motor side. So that's one way of dividing it into two sides. Or you can divide the nervous system into two parts, as the voluntary part and the involuntary part we just mentioned. So involuntary part of the nervous system is also called autonomic nervous system, which you know already has two components, sympathetic and parasympathetic, anuvegi saha pratyanuvegi in Sinhala. Now Again, when you divide the nervous system into two groups, like two halves, like voluntary and involuntary, or voluntary and autonomic, then the brain, spinal cord, the nerves, peripheral nerves, you can divide all of them into voluntary and involuntary. Okay. Then when it comes to structural division, one way to divide is somatic and visceral. Somatic refers to all nervous parts related to the skin and the skeletal muscles. So visceral means related to the internal organs and blood vessels. So again, you can have somatic nerves, you can have visceral nerves, and somatic nerves connect up with the somatic parts of the brain that deal with the somatic part of the nervous system, and there are parts of the brain and the spinal cord dealing with the visceral organs. Then again, you can divide the central nervous system. You can divide the nervous system into a central part and a peripheral part. Central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Here, the central means the parts that are in the center, like the brain and the spinal cord. Or you can use the term central to mean that it is the main part. Now, the central bus stop or the central post office is not always in the center of the city, okay, but it's called central because it's the main post office, so main bus stop. So like that, central can have two meanings. The brain and the spinal cord, they are in the center, and at the same time, they are the main controlling part of the nervous system. Then the peripheral nervous system is the part that goes out. So all your cranial nerves coming out from the brain and the spinal nerves coming out from the spinal cord, whether they are voluntary or involuntary, whether they are sensory or motor. Okay, so that's why I said you can have all these classifications together, or whether they are somatic or visceral. You call them, if they are in the center, you call them central. If they are in the periphery, like this, they are in the periphery, you call them peripheral nervous system. So this is the central nervous system, and this is the peripheral nervous system. All these receptors and the efferent nerves, and the effector organs. Its peripheral nervous system is this part actually. Okay. So these organs are separate. Okay. So then in anatomy, when we learn anatomy, the main classification we use, the key classification that we use is this. You divide it into this central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, not forgetting the other ways of classifying it, because you can actually put them in here. So the central nervous system includes the brain and the spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system includes the cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Now, if you take one cranial nerve, if this is a cranial nerve, you can have somatic nerve fibers in this one. You can have autonomic nerve fibers in this one. Okay. And you can have voluntary and involuntary. It's very similar to the previous classification, motor and sensory. So it's like that. You will learn it, when you continue this module. So when you take the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord, brain is inside the cranial cavity here, and the spinal cord starts from the foramen magnum here in the skull base and continues down through the vertebral canal of the up to the lower border of L1, up to the lower border of L1 vertebra. And the central nervous system contains cell bodies and nerve fibers. I will come back to it. So this is the foramen magnum. You have learned it. Okay, so below that is the spinal cord. Now the peripheral nervous system, these are the cranial nerves and spinal nerves, as I said before. Peripheral nervous system includes cranial and spinal nerves with the cell bodies, and cell bodies means the ganglia lying outside. Now all these nerves, now if you look at the spinal nerve, this swollen area is called the dorsal root ganglion. Now this is a collection of sensory cell bodies which lies outside the spinal cord. So that is called uh, ganglion. That's why you call it dorsal root ganglion, which is on the dorsal side. Similarly, you have ganglia related to the cranial nerves. Now, spinal nerves will have dorsal root ganglia outside the central nervous system. Cranial nerves will have cranial nerve ganglia outside the brain. Now, they can be inside the cranial cavity, but outside the brain. Now, you have one famous ganglion here, which is called the trigeminal ganglion, which, which includes the sensory cell bodies of the trigeminal nerve. Trigeminal nerve has several branches, okay, ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular divisions. So all these, when they bring sensory nerves, their cell bodies would be in the trigeminal ganglion. So the vagus nerve, facial nerve, all these sensory nerves will have um, cranial nerve ganglia. They are ganglia containing sensory cell bodies outside the central nervous system. So they are part of the peripheral nervous system. Then, as part of the peripheral nervous system, you get the sympathetic chains on either side of the vertebral column. You get the sympathetic chains here, and sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. Sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. They can be either separate, or their fibers can be inside the spinal and cranial nerves. So when they are separate, usually you call them splanchnic nerves. You can have um, different types of splanchnic nerves. When you do the abdominal dissection, you do the pelvic dissections, you find splanchnic nerves. So they are separate autonomic nerves, but otherwise they are inside the same cranial or spinal nerves. Now, when you look at a nerve cell, this is how you see a nerve cell, a neuron. You have a cell body here, and you have the fibers. Fibers are either short fibers called dendrites, or long fibers called axons. So all your peripheral nerves, um, especially the nerves that you have seen, cranial nerves you have not seen yet. You have seen median nerve, ulnar nerve, radial nerve, musculocutaneous nerve. All these nerves, they are formed of axons. Whether they are sensory nerves or motor nerves, they are formed of axons. Remember that point. So these long nerve fibers are called axons. The details of the nerve cell, nerve fibers, you will learn through a separate lecture, structure of the nerve. Okay, so these nerve fibers, the axons, are covered with what is called myelin sheath. Okay, so it's a myelin sheath that covers it. This is important for the rapid conduction. So nerve fibers are here. Okay, it's one nerve fiber. Okay, so it's myelin sheath surrounding one nerve fiber. Okay, cranial and spinal nerves contain axons of neurons. This is why I've mentioned. Then the distribution of nerve cells and fibers in the central nervous system. Now, now in the brain, you get the cell collection of cells is called gray matter, and collection of fibers is called white matter in the central nervous system. Now in the brain, the gray matter is outside the brain, in the cortex of the brain, which is this area. And in the spinal cord, gray matter is inside, white matter is outside. Here the white matter is inside. So that is some point that you need to remember. Then in the peripheral nervous system, as I said before, cells are found in the peripheral nervous system. Cells are found in ganglia, collection of cell bodies outside the central nervous system. And the fibers are found in the nerves, like the median nerve and ulnar nerve. And all sensory nerves, whether they are somatic nerves or autonomic nerves, remove the video. Okay, remove the video. All somatic nerves, whether they are all sensory nerves, whether they are somatic or autonomic, have their cell bodies in the dorsal root ganglion. When it comes to the spinal nerves, it's the dorsal root ganglion. And when it comes to the cranial nerves, it's cranial nerve ganglion. Okay. And there are no ganglia associated with motor nerve fibers. Okay. So it's only with the sensory nerves. Then autonomic motor nerves have their cell bodies in the sympathetic chain. Autonomic motor nerves have their cell bodies in the sympathetic chain, if it is sympathetic, or near the visceral organs. They supply when it comes to the parasympathetic nerves. I'll try to explain it. If this is spinal cord, this is spinal cord. Now the autonomic nerve, say the sympathetic nerve will have fibers coming from the brain. Okay, so these are called, you will learn it later. Okay, so then these fibers will synapse with the cell body here in the spinal cord, and the nerve fiber will come out. And this nerve fiber will synapse with another cell here, and that will have a fiber going out. So this, since this is a collection of cell bodies outside the central nervous system, this is the central nervous system, this is called a ganglion. As I said, this is a ganglion. Now, since this is ganglion, this nerve fiber is called preganglionic fiber. Preganglionic fiber. This is therefore postganglionic fiber. Postganglionic fiber. Now both sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system has this arrangement. There's a preganglionic fiber and a postganglionic fiber. So that is the first thing that you need to remember. And the cell bodies of the preganglionic fiber lie inside the central nervous system. So if it is the spinal nerves, it's the spinal cord. If it is a cranial nerve, it is the brain. Preganglionic fiber will lie there. Then the postganglionic fiber, cell bodies of the postganglionic fiber will lie inside the ganglion. And when it comes to the sympathetic nerves, this ganglia, sympathetic ganglia lying outside the central nervous system, they should be like this. They should be like this actually, a set of ganglia like this, one after the other. But the issue is, when it comes to this preganglionic and postganglionic fibers, the postganglionic fiber or the preganglionic fiber will move up sometimes and go out with the other fiber, or move down and go out, can move several segments up. So this actually forms this connection between the ganglia and the sympathetic chain in the end, because they don't come out at the same level, they go up and come out, go up and come out, or go down and come out. So this will form the sympathetic chain. And the sympathetic chain, as you know, it's just now, if this is the spinal cord here, and if this is the vertebral bodies are here, so it's just outside the vertebral column, vertebral canal, and it's very close to the central nervous system, therefore. So the sympathetic system has shorter preganglionic fibers, and if the organ is far away, very long postganglionic fibers. So preganglionic fibers are short, and postganglionic fibers are long in the sympathetic nervous system. On the other hand, in the parasympathetic nervous system, since they don't have a sympathetic chain like that arrangement, parasympathetic nervous system, the preganglionic fiber will be very long, and if say it supplies some sensory organ here, say it supplies the gut tube here, smooth muscles the gut, the ganglion is usually, the preganglionic fiber will continue all the way to the gut wall, and there you will have the collection of the cell bodies of the postganglionic fiber, and the postganglionic fiber will be very short here. So when you study the gut, you have seen Meissner's and mesenteric plexus, and these are actually the cell bodies are also there in the same area of the gut tube when they form these nerve plexuses. So remember this point, then one of these fibers is myelinated, the other one is not myelinated, so you call them myelinated and non-myelinated fibers and all stuff. So the autonomic nervous system, as we have already mentioned, has these two components, sympathetic anuvegi and parasympathetic pratyanuvegi. So sympathetic nervous system has a thoracolumbar outflow. You must have learned this when you did the elevates thoracolumbar outflow, means uh, the sympathetic nerves uh, actually come out from the thoracic spinal segments and lumbar spinal segments. That's the middle area of the spinal cord. And then it forms the sympathetic chain, as I said just a moment ago. Then the parasympathetic nerves has got a craniosacral outflow. So they don't come out from the center here. It's for the sympathetic nerves. So craniosacral means some parasympathetic nerves come out from the brain stem, from the lower part of the brain, and some few come out from the sacral region. So you call it craniosacral outflow. So this part is for the sympathetic nerves. So this is one reason why the vagus nerve has to come down all the way through the neck, through the thorax, into the abdominal cavity to supply the gut here, because there is no other way to get parasympathetic to the organs in the abdominal cavity. You bring the vagus nerve, which is the longest cranial nerve, so that sympathetic can match the balance, opposite action. Parasympathetic is brought through the vagus nerve. Then on the other hand, since it is a thoracolumbar outflow for sympathetic, for when it comes to organs like the eye and like the salivary glands or whatever in the head and neck region, for them to get sympathetic, since there is no sympathetic outflow in the brain, you have to bring these nerves up into the head region through blood vessels and then supply these organs. When it comes to pelvic organs like the bladder, uterus, vagina, you get the parasympathetic outflow here from the sacral region. You get sympathetic outflow also from the lumbar region. You can supply them through the nerve plexus like superior and inferior hypogastric plexus. You will learn that later. I have already mentioned the superior and inferior hypogastric plexus I did when I did the pelvic region. I think, okay, superior and inferior hypogastric plexus, they will supply the pelvic organs and perineal organs with autonomic nerves. This fight or flight reaction is something that you can make use of. You can use the fight or flight reaction to remember the action of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems on the body. Now, when you face some challenging situation, either you fight that situation or you run away from that situation. Okay, you either fight or you run away from that situation. You call it fight or flight reaction. For both, you need to have increased activity of muscles. You have to contract the muscles either to fight or hit or run. You have to increase breathing. The rate of respiration has to go up. The heart rate has to go up. And you have to reduce the blood supply to the skin. So you will get pale. Get reduced blood supply to the skin. You increase the blood supply to the muscles. You reduce the blood supply to your gut also. You reduce the gut motility, and your sexual functions will be all inhibited. So this is actually the action of the sympathetic nervous system. This is the action of the sympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic system is for fight or flight reaction. Then once you fight, you finish the fight, then either it's rest and digest, or you feed and breed. Okay, you can call it either. So then for this, you get the activity of the parasympathetic system. So if you know this, you can actually list out without by hearting, you can list out the actions of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So the sympathetic, for the fight or flight reaction, increase the blood supply to the muscles, reduce the blood supply to the gut and the skin and other internal organs, inhibit the peristalsis of the gut, and contract the detrusor, contraction of the detrusor muscles. It's the relaxation. Okay, this should be corrected as it's not contraction. If you contract the detrusor muscle, you will urinate. Okay, so sympathetic has to relax the detrusor muscles of the bladder. Okay, and it contracts smooth muscles, sphincters, and close up the urinary tract and the gut, and inhibit secretions from glands. The parasympathetic does the opposite of that, increase the blood supply to the gut and increase the gut motility and open up its sphincters, and it contracts the detrusor muscle so that the bladder can get emptied through the relaxed sphincters. So then, if you know this, you can easily work it out.